This is the Keller Chronicles, Cook with Your Heart. Stories, lessons, and flavors from Chef Duane Keller, a chef who has spent 5 decades cooking for presidents, royalty, and people just like you.
Welcome to the Chef Chronicles. I've got Vic Rose. He's the founder of Cuisine University, and he's brought in two of his awesome chef instructors. I'd like to introduce Jeremy and Steve. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vic, please tell us a little bit about your mission, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
All right. Well, the kind of story of Cuisine U began in the late 70s when I worked for a chef, but Cuisine U actually was founded in 2012 to a tribute to Aldo Ottavani, who was a master butcher and a chef from Rome. I had the privilege of working with at his restaurant, Aldo's in Detroit. And Aldo was an incredible mentor. When I decided to move to Florida, he made me an extraordinary offer. He said, stay with him for 5 years and he would turn me into a master of charcuterie. But being in my 20s, didn't always make the smartest decisions. So I left. Then a lesson I would never forget, a year or so later, I came back to his kitchen and he never replaced me. That's the type of guy he was. He didn't trust too many people in his kitchen. And I walked into it. It was a busy Friday night, and they were backed up. So I figured I'd try to help them get out of the weeds. I had no plans of staying there too long. But I asked Aldo if I could help, and Aldo looked at me, and he was pretty still disgusted I left. And said, you remember anything? I says, I don't know, but I'll do my best, and we'll see what happens. Well, I was there till 1 o'clock in the morning. He looked at me, and he says, he called me Tobia. It was a nickname he gave me. He said, Tobia, you remember a lot. He said, you did a good job. He said, you stupid boy. If you'd have stayed, I'd have left you the restaurant. And then that's when I said, well, you didn't tell me you were going to leave me the restaurant. and then he gave me a lesson that I'll never forget. He used the words, he said something that really surprised me. He says, I didn't want you to stay because I was leaving you the restaurant. He said, I wanted you to stay because you wanted to stay. And so, unfortunately, I didn't, and that's a price I paid. But then it kind of sparked an idea that I went to an event called the NFL's Taste of the NFL, which is a Friday night before Super Bowl. It's a fundraiser for children for hunger, and each team has a chef that represents their local, their team from whatever city they're from. And then I was walking by. I grew up in Detroit, so I walked by the Detroit Lions. And Brian Polson was there, who's the author of charcuterie. And I told him I worked there. He said, who'd you work for? I said, well, I worked for Aldo and I worked for Douglas Grech. He says, those are both great chefs. He says, you must have been pretty good. I says, no, I could have been, but I didn't have the patience. And that's other thing Aldo taught me. He says, patience is a virtue of every intelligent man. So anyway, that's kind of when meeting Brian sparked the idea to do a tribute or something I could pay back to Aldo for leaving him. And I felt bad about that. About a month later, I reached out to Brian. I says, do you want to do some charcuterie classes? I don't have 5 years of my life right now to dedicate to becoming a master in charcuterie. Brian said, we'll try one. If it works, we'll keep doing them. Well, we did them for like 5 years. And then at the end of about a 5-year period, I kept getting chefs saying, well, you do such a great job on these workshops. Why don't you add some additional classes? And then that's when I started doing master bread, master pizza. Then I added fermentation, dry aging. I just recently did a master Mexican cuisine. I also have access to Fred Esteve's Geronimo Lopez for Chifa Nikkei cuisine, and also for robotic grilling at Japanese Kuseki cooking. As well as I probably have the best dried aged fish expert in the world, Li Wei Lao. So I've been extremely fortunate. These workshops have led me to meet truly talented people like Steve and Jeremy. And what's even more important, both of those, as well as all my other instructors, we've all become extremely great friends. I just got back from seeing Jamie. Jamie Simpson. I was at Chef's Garden on Saturday. And Jamie helps me out on the vegetable side of workshops. And I'm sure you all know that's an amazing place, Chef's Garden. If you haven't been there, that should be a bucket list for all chefs. So like I said, I've been very fortunate to be blessed by having people that are extremely talented that have helped me grow my business. And basically Cuisine exists, Cuisine U exists today because of a lifelong mentor being Eldo and the powerful lesson of believing and obviously staying back to him by doing Cuisine U, and then the passion of all the great chefs I have made my classes pretty successful. Though still a lot of people in the country still haven't heard of Cuisine U, but I've had Eric Repaired to Michael White to Susan Spicer to quite a few other chefs attend our classes. I've even had David Burke personally take two of them. So I've been pretty blessed on having some very talented people send their chefs to basically get better in certain areas that they're not that experts in. So and I try to do my best to bring the best talent to all the chefs in the U.S. that want to continue to learn and help them out in their continuing education goals. So that's basically a quick thing, but it's probably more important for you to sit there and talk with Jeremy and Steve. They're much smarter than I am. I mean, I'm just the person who organizes everything. The people, all the chefs around the country come to see people like Steve and Jeremy. They don't come to see me. So I'll let you go ahead and start asking some questions of Steve and Jeremy. They're both amazing guys, and like I said, I'm honored to have them as instructors, and I'm even more honored to have them as a friend.
Thanks, Vic. When you see Burke next time, tell him I'm putting tinfoil on my knuckles for the chef battle next year. He just lost at Club Montami last week.
I heard.
I'm ready for him at El Mead. We're ready to go.
Yeah, but I heard the members are the ones that vote. I think the other chef had a little edge there.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
That's right. Any way you can win, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Great to have you here. Thank you. Do you want to start with Jeremy?
Yeah, chef? Jeremy. Jerry, you came on first, so I'll let you start.
Yeah. So I'm a chef here in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I'm calling in from today. See some of the lovely mushrooms we have growing around here behind me. And my wife and I, we own a little delicatessen and bakery. We're become fairly well known for our takes on modern deli food, but also fermented foods and the incorporation of them into kind of these everyday normal foods is what we really focus on. We do a lot of local sourcing. We make everything in-house. If we can't produce it, we typically don't put it on the menu. The exceptions are mayo and ketchup. If you put anything besides Heinz out, they're not happy. People don't want Chevy ketchup. We were able to rebrand mayo as aioli, and people want fancy mayo, but they don't want Chevy ketchup. So ketchup and mayo are really the only two things we don't produce in-house. But when I say we make everything, we make our own versions of soy sauces and misos. We ferment all our pickles. We do in-house bread production and pastry production every day. We do whole animal butchery and dry aging. We make all our own charcuterie. We literally cure about 250 pounds of raw Ohio brisket into pastrami a week. So we do it all from the ground up.
We were talking a little bit about caviar and the Great Lakes. I mean, it's dear to my heart. I'm originally from Saskatchewan. My dad played hockey in the original six.
Just so you know, Saskatoon berries are one of my favorite fruits ever.
Amen. Amen.
I have 2 trees at my house. We serve them on the menu at the restaurant when they're in season in June. Oh yeah, we use a lot of. So I'm also a licensed mycologist, and I have an expertise in working with molds in relation to food. So we do a lot of foraged ingredients, and we do a lot of esoteric things.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, the caviar you're saying, you're a freshwater boy. You grew up with those beautiful Canadian lakes, and I'm sure you're no stranger to eating burbo and a lot of the other wonderful fish. And we serve burbo at the restaurant. We treat it like cod. We'll even salt it and dry it and hang it in our dry ager to make our own bacalao for cod fritters. But the caviar is a fun one. So most people who kind of grew up around the Great Lakes, and it doesn't matter which one or what side of them you grew up on, from about the 1890s through the Great Depression, most of the world's caviar came from the Great Lakes. It was actually harvested here and shipped back over to Europe and labeled as Russian because they would package it there and say, oh, it's Russian. We do that with stuff nowadays. Plenty of people do this. So, we fish so many sturgeon out that they're endangered now. We have international treaties, the Canadians, the U.S., and each state has its own fair usage rights. So you can go to jail for a long time if you even think about catching a sturgeon. That's the point we're at now. We had a thriving caviar industry all throughout the industrialization when this steel town ring was built along the southern shores of Lake Erie and the other lakes, with this rust belt that was built. You want to know what bartenders and pub owners put out on their bar instead of peanuts and snacks? Caviar. Sturgeon caviar. This like blows my mind still when I think about this, that some steel worker from a factory in Cleveland got off work, went to a pub and smashed a bunch of caviar with their beer. This is like how my city was built, So fast forward now, we don't have access to sturgeon eggs anymore, but we have bountiful and plentiful, well-managed fish stocks for other fish, and we're trying to rebuild the sturgeon. So we're fortunate through dayboat operators on the Great Lakes, we can get whitefish eggs. Now, normally these would be called roe, but because the Great Lakes, we were kind of robbed of our caviar heritage that we could still have because of mismanagement and just, 18th century, 19th century oversight, right? Everybody thought we had unlimited resources and we didn't. So we couple that with that we are actually taking these whitefish eggs and we put them through the exact same process to make the caviar that the sturgeon eggs go through. So because we were robbed of the opportunity and because we use the method and technique behind the make, we call it whitefish caviar. That is what we do. And last year we made nearly 60 kilos. So for those of you that don't use metric, I'd give 150 pounds. Someone a little smaller than myself.
That's a lot of caviar.
It's a lot, and we'll put it on everything. I mean, we'll do literally my wife, she's our pastry chef and baker and our co-owner. She'll grill off rye flatbreads and we'll smear them with cultured cream or fermented butter, and we'll just layer it with caviar and herbs, and there you go, $15. That's your lunch.
Nice. Nice. Whitefish, we had fish soup, and all we used was whitefish. My parents were from Russia and Germany and Poland. And, family gatherings, we had, homemade noodles, and you'd saute them up, and it was just fish soup, but it was all whitefish.
Yeah. Did they use carp ever? Because that's another big one that we use a ton of. Carp and buffalo.
Way back in the early 70s.
Yeah, I've heard stories from my grandparents. My grandmother passed around 2014. She was in her mid 90s. She would at one point bring a live carp home from the fishmonger and keep it in the bathtub for a couple days in fresh water. Once a day you'd change the water, and this was to help get the muddiness, out of the carp. You washed it out for a couple days, and then as the weekend came, you take it out of the bathtub. You get it on Wednesday, you keep it in the bathtub for 2 days. So everybody's a little smelly, but whatever. And then on Friday, you take that fish and you make the gefilte fish for the Sabbath. That was, so I never saw that growing up, but I grew up with tales of that happening.
We had a lot of carp in Hershey Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's honestly, listen, for those of you out there that are these guys are talking about carp, I thought I tuned in for some high-end stuff, Listen, I want people to understand the carp and the related fish in its family, they're vegetarians. I look at them as the same as Midwestern beef we get here in Ohio and, Cleveland. I look at carp as that version, but in our lakes and rivers. And it gets really fatty. It's got nice, deep, savory meat. It's not like a light fish. It's got really good, savory flavor, kind of like a tuna would almost, if it gets smoked. It smokes great. It goes into spreads and salads. We grind it. I even make a bologna using it. It's a versatile fish. Its environmental impact is low. There's plenty of them, so it's a really well-managed fishery. It's delicious. And I'll tell you what, whole fish, you're talking $1.50 a pound. If you're getting it filleted from your monger, maybe $2.50 a pound. So it's an exquisite ingredient that just because someone else didn't like it and was like, either that's for poor people, that tastes like crap, or whatever it is, screw them. Like, you're all chefs, you can make carp delicious. So we do a barbecued and like glaze it like you would eel because it's so fatty, the belly pieces. I mean, really, carp and buffalo, they're exquisite fishes. The price point is excellent. We use a lot of it.
Do you think it's on the Monterey Bay Sustainable Guide?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if carp and buffalo, Great Lakes catch, were probably one of the only consistently green rated fisheries.
You have me sold. I'm going to be coming to Cleveland to check it out.
Yeah, and listen, here's the great thing. All our fish operators here, they're all small day boat operators. So it's great. Like, you meet a good fishmonger who has a connection down at the docks. They'll introduce you to some of the boat captains. You can buy direct from them. You can request certain catch. I mean, sometimes I'm able to get just random bycatch, 60-pound cases out of the lake. And that whole case maybe cost me $60, And I have, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 different fish in there that I could do different fun things with that are all delicious and indicative of our Great Lakes. So.
Man, I'm just thinking about all the times I went up to work on my uncle's farm, and we'd fly in on one of those pontoon planes. Well, there were no roads to the cabin. We would land on Lake. What lake was it? Anyways, we'd land on the lake. We'd go fishing. It was all walleye and pickerel, and we cook that in a cast iron pan, and my mouth is just watering right now.
You're making me hungry now.
So many little chipmunks everywhere.
Hey, listen, in the right place and setting, chipmunks and squirrel are great food too. So I wrote an article. I wrote an article a number of years ago for our local publication, Edible Magazines, Edible Cleveland, saying that we should all eat more squirrel. Like, as we've like suburbanized, all of North America, whether you're Canadian or Mexican, right? Like, and everything in between, everything's like sprawling suburbia. We got tons of squirrels everywhere. I bet you we could come up with a really nice management plan, and that could be just great for people. But
yeah, it's called Brunswick stew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was a old recipe. I worked in Virginia for 2 decades and at a very nice inn called the Ashby Inn. And one of the first recipes for Brunswick stew were 4 ingredients. It was like bread, water, squirrel, and salt.
and eventually, I forget if it was Grover Cleveland or President Harrison, but one of them had Brunswick stew. And it's there's a even farther south an analog that they call squirrel burgaloo. So both Brunswick stew and burgaloo are kind of similar dishes in some respects, but they both had squirrel. They had those on the presidential menu at the White House chef. So it went from this like scrappy Appalachian like poverty dish to eventually being served to the leader of the free world. I love it. Eat more squirrel. All we can say.
Is there anything else you want to share with our group here today?
I do want to, in parlaying with Vic and what he does, like, it's been such a really great opportunity to be able to do these classes with Vic, to be able to go around, show people like the advanced fermentation techniques that we use in the restaurant, and maybe that they see you being used at other restaurants that maybe on another continent and not accessible to, you can't just go fly to Europe and have a crazy dinner and go be back for work the next day. That's out of reach for a lot of people. So, these classes are a great opportunity because, we've done Florida, New York, Ohio. Vic does them all over the country, so they're rotating. Great group of people. The last one I taught was with a brilliant mixologist, Danny Childs. His book had just won the Beard Award last year for mixology and cocktails. And so it's really, Vic's able to get a group of us in a room. We all get along and have a great time. And then, everybody even learns a little bit more. So they're just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And as someone like me, who our restaurant, we always push not just innovation for innovation's sake, but I have ADHD and I get bored easily. that's why we innovate. So it's not to like, oh, let's be creative. It's just like, oh no, I'm bored.
Yeah.
So we push the innovation, and that's what's great with these classes is because when one comes to maybe a city that's nearby you, like the innovation's coming to you, the inspiration's coming to you, the creativity, and like the person to ask a question of, so to be face to face with, even for me, like doing some of these workshops, some of the other chefs that Vic brings along, I'm like, I am definitely sitting in on that guy's session. Like, that woman's session, I'm going to learn so much. So they're absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, they're just not cooking classes. These are like elite. This is
I would look at these along the level of like, you hear about like the banker or the accountant going for like an advanced certificate and this or whatever, the teacher getting, it's not a master's degree that they're getting. They're just getting like another certification in something they do. These are very much easily high level professional certification and continuing education courses that Vic puts together. I mean, from I'll let you in, and then we'll pass off. From the standpoint when Vic's asked us to do the classes, he's like, all right, boys, girls, I need your syllabus. I need a breakdown. I need a timeline. I'm like, we put a lot of work into these, and Vic is very demanding for the level. So you get educational packets, you get all sorts of, direct hand-on-hand immersive experience. It really is viewed as, oh, this isn't just a casual weekend, like, oh, let's see, my local library has a knitting class. I've never done that before. Let me go for the 40-minute class and check it. No. These are for serious professionals who want to further their craft, develop, be inspired, understand emerging and new technologies and ways of cooking, and it's brought right to your door.
That's fantastic. I'm hoping to get our GM to talk to me about having you to Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia's beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to try to see if we can get these two guys together to do a class. Maybe we can do it at your club.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you bring your golf clubs.
I'm more interested on the mushrooms growing along the course than the golf club swinging there. So.
We got a lot of shrooms. Yeah.
Yep. Well, let me just say one thing, since Jeremy was so nice to plug my classes. Don't forget to plug your book, Koji Alchemy, which is a very popular book with chefs nowadays.
Yeah, and Vic has brought my co-author Rich has done classes with Vic, and in this book it's called Koji Alchemy. For those that don't know, we won't get into it like really crazy, but koji is the food grade mold. So think like molds like camembert, salami, that sort of thing. Food grade mold that is grown on rice or soybeans to make sake, miso, or soy sauce. You can't make any of those foods without this mold. And my research partner, Rich, and I work very intensively with it. I mean, our pastrami cure that we do with it at the restaurant, we go from raw brisket to on your sandwich in under 5 days. Wow. So no month long in the brine and letting it does radical dramatic things. So thanks for reminding me, Vic. Sometimes, but the book was released in 2020. So, we're 5, almost 6 years out. So it isn't always forefront of my mind.
Yeah, and your koji fried chicken too.
Yeah, it's and Chef Keller, just got a little bit for you and the viewers. Literally outside of salt, right? We use salt in everything we cook. It's a universal ingredient. There's pretty much no other universal ingredients that are used. Sweet, savory, doesn't matter the cuisine or part of the world. Like salt is always there. The other universal ingredient is koji. And it's not a has to be used universally like salt, but it is a can be used. And it doesn't matter the cuisine. It doesn't matter the recipe itself. There's all these different types of koji. There's different ways to use it. The easiest thing I like to tell people to get started with is swap the amount of salt in a cookie dough recipe you have with an exact volume of your favorite miso. If it calls for a teaspoon of salt, use a teaspoon of miso. Pick a deep, dark miso for a chocolate cookie, maybe a lighter, sweeter miso for a butter cookie or a snickerdoodle. But make that swap, and your mind will be blown at how simple it is to create even more deliciousness than you've already established in your own recipes. And that is a lot of what we describe in the book. So thanks again, Vic, for reminding me.
That's fantastic, Chef. Thank you. We're gonna have Steve talk about. Can you talk about your new book, Steve?
Yes, we'll start with the book. I'm actually using it to lift up my laptop here. It's called Cured. The name of our restaurant is Cured. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And the book is 8 chapters. Every chapter is a different way to basically preserve foods. So we have smoke, acid, salt, freezing, drying, fermenting, sugaring, buttering, or fat, fat preservation. So it's really written for the home cook. It basically takes a lot of the tips and tricks and things that we do in the restaurant every single day that people think of as magic. How did you do this, or how did you make this? And so we kind of break it down and really give them the tools to do these things at home and treat their own freezer, pantry, their own kitchens as a way to kind of extend the harvest, extend that shopping list. I tell people all the time, how often do you buy, a pound of basil at the store and half of it ends up in the trash a week later because you only needed, so many leaves for a recipe. And the book kind of helps you understand what to do with those things that are in your refrigerator or in your cabinet that are really just kind of sitting there going bad. And, whether it's a spice and the oils are coming out and just, so it's really written, like I said, with a chef's brain on kind of how to extend the harvest. Because, as you guys know, I throw away more food at my house than I do in the restaurant, right? It's like we can't afford it in the restaurant. We have to utilize, the basil stems, the leaves, the beet, everything gets utilized. I had radish greens with my fried chicken last night on the menu, right? So it's nothing goes to waste, and the book really opens people's eyes as to kind of how to do these things in the home kitchen.
That's fantastic, and that's just what people need because the price of food is astronomical. And I always say every ounce counts, and that's in our business. But I agree. I throw more food away at home too than I do in my restaurant.
Yeah, and it's not a chefy book. It's not a restaurant book. I think that's what people appreciate by it. We sell a lot of them in the restaurant, which is great. And I think sometimes restaurant books can scare your everyday customer. So we really tried to take the approach of, no, these are very approachable recipes and techniques. I wrote the book with Paula Forbes, who is an amazing writer. She lives in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Wisconsin. So did Paula. We both lived in New York, and now we both live in Texas. So when we met, it was just kindred spirits. We got along extremely well. We had a lot of the same stories. We'd laugh about the same things our parents, this casserole that our parents grew up cooking, things that were very Midwest.
Sheboygan rolls.
Yeah, exactly. And I grew up in southern Wisconsin. My dad was from Chicago, but I grew up seeing things like, Lahnjagers hanging in bars where they were just like bar snacks, right? So you'd have a beer and you'd see sausages hanging behind the up where the bottles were. You'd see things like that. A lot of jars of pickled things.
Chef, we got to have you up here for a pop-up, and we just have Lahnjager and caviar sitting on the bar for people.
A little surf and turf.
Yeah. People, those were bar snacks where we came from. Right now, it's gourmet cuisine to put a Lahnjager on your menu. So Paula and I we just hit it off really well, and she was very good about kind of making me take my chef hat off when I was creating, recipes for this. And I mean, as serious as like, hey, does this recipe have to have white pepper in it? And I say, no, we could use black pepper. And she said, good, because people don't typically keep white pepper at home. And then I sat there and I said, you're right, I don't even keep it at home, But she was very good about me, rethink this for a home cook. And I've always said chefs write probably some of the worst recipes because I'm so used to my CDC and my sous chefs just basically saying, all right, there's some greens in there, take this, do that. I've got some hamon scraps. We're going to grind those up. We're going to do this, and then that's the recipe. And somehow something ends up on the menu that's magic, right? Because we kind of share the same brain. You have to sit down and write not only a cohesive recipe for 4 people, but also that a home cook would understand. It, honestly, it was a bit of a challenge, but it was one that I really appreciated over time. And the more I researched and looked at other, chefs that I love, their books, and how would they do this, and how is that written, I really, towards the end of it, it actually was a very fun process, and I really enjoyed kind of going down that rabbit hole of like, how would I make this in my own kitchen at home,
Where would we find the book?
Yeah, so it's available obviously on our website. If you buy it from the website, it'll be signed. Anywhere books are sold, though, Amazon. I'm literally next door to a independent bookstore retailer, and they keep it. they keep it in the window all the time, which I appreciate for them. So yeah, just about anywhere books are sold. It's been great. It's been very well received. It's been out probably now, I guess, a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and I'm always surprised at how many will sell on like a Friday, Saturday night. I'm constantly getting pulled out of the kitchen. As chef, you probably experienced that right away. It's just it's the constant like, hey, table 22 wants a book. You're like, oh god, I'll be right back. So it's really fun. It's not something I ever thought I would ever do. I'm very, very glad that I did. And it's a source of pride for not only myself, my family. My wife works here in the restaurant. My daughter works in the restaurant, but also everybody who worked on it, from my chefs to the photographer and just everybody involved.
I would say it's a book that everybody needs, especially at home, But I had my first dinner party last night. The family's been in this house for 3 years in Georgia. And I always joke because I say I'm like in the witness protection program. Nobody knows me down here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the couples said, could they tell everybody in the neighborhood how great the food was? And I was like, no, please don't. No, I like it quiet.
Exactly. Same way when we bought our house 10 years ago. We lived downtown San Antonio. And we bought a house out on the north side, and because my wife and I are very much like, when we're off, we like to just be in our backyard, working in the garden, just with our dogs. And the day we moved in, one of the neighbors walked over and she said, "Oh, you're a chef." She goes, "Your neighbor on the other side is a chef." And I was like, "No." Oh, dear God. But he's an amazing chef, a great neighbor. He owns a Mexican restaurant here in San Antonio that's been up for about 45 years. I mean, just an amazing guy. And so, but it's true. Here at the restaurant, we started out as a whole animal butchery restaurant. We still are. And it's funny because a lot of times people think, is that how you got started? Is that what you wanted to do? Did you want to be a butcher? And I said, well, I've always been a butcher. I've always enjoyed that aspect. But for us, it was really about how do we wanted to be a friend of the farmer, a friend of the rancher. And it was like, how do we purchase a whole pig or a quarter of a cow or goats and lamb and all these things and go from there? Because a lot of times I would work in restaurants. I came up in New Orleans cooking. I was there for quite a long time. And we would buy a whole pig, but then half of it would end up in the freezer, right? And then we would deal with it little by little. And I just didn't want to, I just didn't think that was the best way to respect the animal, the farmer, the rancher, those who got involved. And so I really got into this rabbit hole of curing and understanding how to kind of prolong our harvest and utilize the things. But also, as a business owner, I was able to elevate, something, a simple ham or a simple shoulder or something, and turn it into something that we could actually make really decent money on. And so I think it probably, I don't know, Vic, 15, 16 years ago, I probably took one of Brian's classes.
Yeah, you did. You took a class about 2014 or so.
Yeah, well, because we opened the restaurant in 2013, and it was before that. So,
Okay, well then it was 2012.
Yeah. Okay. But I'd always dabbled in these things coming up in restaurants, and we would salt a little something here, and we'd smoke something here, and we would make a quick sausage. And I was very adept at making sausages, but salamis was a whole new avenue. And I had opened. I was a corporate chef for BRG Restaurant Group, Best Restaurant Group in New Orleans, and Alon Shaya and I had opened Dominica together, and we had kind of just dabbled in a lot of kind of goofing off, but it wasn't until I took that class with Brian that a lot of the things started making sense. Like, we would do things and make things and salt things, and then we would just do this, right? We would be like, God, I hope it's going to work. And, you'd end up with this beautiful ham, and you're like, oh, wow, I don't know what we did, but it was amazing. We got to do that again, And so it was taking that class really kind of put so much into perspective. And, Brian kind of helped me, connect the dots, if you will, and understand the processes and really kind of hone in all the things that as a chef and somebody who's constantly trying to play with new ingredients and new techniques, it was such an eye opener. And that's why, like, I'm constantly looking at what you've got going on and where you're going to be and who's doing what class, and can I get to Dallas for that pizza class, So, I mean, it's just a great opportunity for folks to continue to learn. And like I said, you're never too smart, too old, whatever, to get in there and learn something new. I sent one of my guys a couple of years ago to a class you did in Houston, one of my butchers, and he came back and he was like, we've got to soak the casings in the mold with the water. We don't just spray it on there. You got to soak them overnight. And we started doing that, and all of a sudden, all our salamis are 100 times better, just blooming like crazy. And I'm like, oh man, I mean, it was worth the price of admission just for that one little tip, one little trick, And I think that's the importance of this continuing education. And like Chef Jeremy said earlier, it's like, we don't have a lot of, you can come out of culinary school and call yourself a chef. We don't have a lot of ways to continue our education, and this is a really great opportunity for folks to continue to want to learn. And if you're in this industry and if you're a chef, you've got to continue to want to push yourself, learn, reading, understanding, taking classes. I mean, that's the only way we're all going to get better and continue down this path.
Amen. The craft is ever there's no finish line. It's just continual learning and sharing, and we are blessed to be in this business. I mean, to pour our hearts out, cook with our hearts, and it's just incredible. It's incredible.
If I can add too, I've noticed at the last class, like, here's the deal: you're in a room with accomplished professionals, being taught by accomplished professionals and sharing. So as everybody's hanging out and taking the class together, the amount of little culinary chef secrets I heard just casually going back and forth from this person sitting next to that person. And so just even being in that room, whether you're there for the class itself, just being in a group of those people who are similarly minded to you and have a similar goal at the time. Because often, right, like, when else do we all chefs, when you see your chef friends in your local community, it's often for a little event in town, the best of, or, someone got a few people together for a pop-up or something. So, it's really great just to be in a room with like-minded professionals with similar goals. We don't see these things a lot as chefs. We hear about them in other.
Chef Keller wanted to also get your input on the restaurant industry today, and where each of you see where it's going, or what changes might have to happen to survive and to be more profitable. So if you guys can give your thoughts on that, I'm sure Chef Keller would appreciate that.
Thank you, Vic. Yeah, after the COVID, 4 years of COVID, the country took a great big hit. I think we lost over 100,000 restaurants. Yeah, please share the current temperature and what some of your challenges are.
Yeah, I'll go on that. It's been an interesting journey, right? I think people who Like Chef alluded to earlier, I think people who are continuing to kind of push themselves, understand new things, new ingredients, figuring out how to do less with more, not just on the product side, but also on the labor side, right? Our restaurant probably had 60 employees in 2019. We probably have 30 now, and figuring out how to run the front door with less hostesses, with less runners, all of those things, and really giving more responsibility to those who are in leadership positions to continue to learn more. And it's about me teaching and getting the line cooks and the prep cooks to understand more, and things that I used to take on myself that belong to me, sharing that and just saying I can't do it all, and I've got to continue to push. But it's also about really for me too, it's like holding my purveyors and providers to kind of not only the standards, but what do you have? What are we working with? What are we utilizing? We went, not just us, but restaurants in general went from like, we want fillets and ribeyes to now everybody wants, culottes and bavettes and flat irons, and it's like now all those things are starting to go up. And I'm like, wait, those were the things
Oxtail.
Yeah.
Oxtail is, I run a delicatessen, tongue.
Yeah.
I hardly put it on the menu anymore unless I'm buying a whole animal or I'm buying whole heads and I can cut them out myself.
Yeah.
Because tongue wholesale right now, I looked into this just last month. It was like $12.99 a pound for a frozen 60-pound block.
Insane.
But thankfully on the flip side, I have a stunning taco joint, literally a couple blocks from me here in Cleveland, that does both tongue lengua tacos and oxtail tacos, and I don't know how they're managing their prices, but they got it and I'm eating it. So there's another side to the coin.
Yeah. So I think it's just being smart and understanding, kind of like what we talked about with the book earlier. It's like extending that harvest, things that we do in the restaurant, you can do it at home too, but it's constantly understanding today's challenges every single day. What are we looking at today, and how do we get through and continue to give people a great experience? I think that's the important thing.
We are, again, fortunate to be able to take care of others the way we do. And, I think the secret sauce is passion. It always has been. And, it's what you make of yourself, and hospitality has a huge opportunity for anybody to just feel good about their contributions, at any level. We have this, anonymous post up here that basically the value is determined also by what you are able to make of yourself. Our craft is as deep as you want to drill down, you can go. And we saw it today with our talented chef team here. They drill down, baby, drill down on that. And if you want to know any more, reach out to Vic or his chefs, and we'll see you around, and we'll have you back, because I really enjoyed this. This went way too fast.
We got 5 more minutes and you got it.
Okay, let's keep going. I like that.
Yeah, Jeremy didn't get to say what he thought about the industry. I'll let him rattle some stuff up.
Yeah, it's a whole new world. It really is. We had so many system changes during COVID, supply chain. Like, I can tell you one of the things that has helped us more than anything has been how we spend our money as a business. Yeah. And we've made it a commitment from our accountant, who is a local firm, to the farmer that we get vegetables from. It's not for my business. It isn't always just about the local food. It's about keeping those other local dollars in my community too. So the local accountant, we work with local artists. We'll pay them $150 for a shirt design that will then get printed with a local company. It's all these different things. So really, really investing, because here's my experience. Your local community is always going to be willing to work with you if you work with them.
Yeah.
Very
Communities outside your own, it doesn't mean they're bad, corporate communities, anything like that, but they're less willing to do that. They're less willing to maybe extend your terms to 45 days from 30, and even simple things like that. So being able to foster that community and like let your community know, like we're all in this together. I don't care if you're selling t-shirts across the street and coffee around the corner and fixing tires at the end of the block, like this sense of reinvesting. So the thing that helps us a lot in the restaurant with that too is when we buy from our local partners, we don't place orders with them. We say, I have a budget to spend with you this week, $100, $150, whatever it is. Bring me whatever's in season. Yeah. And that can be a little tricky sometimes if you're not a chef that's creative and you're maybe a chef that has a crew that needs a little bit more stability, because sometimes I get 15 bushels of eggplant. Sometimes I get 15 bushels and each box has little handfuls of this and that, and it's a million things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the farmer's able to move product to me that they might have just had to take a loss on or compost it or didn't move at the market. Oftentimes I'm buying the stuff they have left over from the market, so they're giving me a good price break on it too. Yep. They're selling it at B grade prices, even though it's just leftover A grade, So that has been one of the strongest things for us, because the amount of product we get in and the relationships we've established with these people, it's just been great. So I'd say focus, do as much business with the community around you as you can, and start buying in ways that change the dynamic of how your restaurant run based on seasonality and what's available, instead of what you think needs to be on a menu for 3 months.
Right.
I hear local, which I've been, all local for at least 3 decades. And then I hear cook with your heart.
Yeah.
Because when you tell them to bring whatever your budget is and they bring it to you, and I love that because it makes you really work harder and think more.
It's that Charlie Trotter model, right?
Yeah.
Where he was like, farmers, I'll just walk them out, I'll just bring it in, and he picked it up seeing some of the European sensibilities. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's not like guys like Steve and I and even you are doing like new things. No, like everybody buying local was the hip thing for literally thousands of years until the Industrial Revolution, and we're like, ship it by rail, Right. So we're just, I feel we're just kind of riding the wave back to ways that food should be.
Yeah. Exactly.
Amen. Well, I thank you guys, chefs. Really, really, really enjoyed this, and we'll have you back real soon, and we'll get all this information out, so we can help others. Thanks again. Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
If any of your listeners out there want to put together Cuisine U class with Steve and Jeremy together, I've been looking to do that, because they're both very talented in similar areas, but different in different ways as well. But so if any of your listeners out there, they can contact me, and we'll put something together, and hopefully we can come to your city soon.
Sounds good, Vic. Thank you. Thank you, chefs.
Thank you, Chef Keller. Be well. Have a great one.
Thank you for being part of the Keller Chronicles. Cook with your heart. Join us in the hospitality mixes to keep the conversation going. And until next time, remember, every meal is a chance to share love, and every day is a chance to make a difference.